Welcome back to another episode of the ABCs of ERP and Beyond, the podcast where we break down the essentials and all the features around enterprise resource planning and how they shape the future of business technology. So whether you are new to ERP or seasoned pro, then we've now got an extensive backlog of episodes where we share insights, tips, benefits, and some expert advice to help you navigate this landscape. And in today's episode, we are talking about mobile scanning technology, something we haven't spoken about before, but there are a lot of benefits. There's a few different options out there, so we're going to be discussing those and really how to start thinking about the implementation of this technology. And as ever, I cannot do it without my fellow co-host, Nirav. Welcome back.
Hey, Peter. Excited to be getting the band back together again. It's been a couple weeks since we shot, but yeah, I'm excited for this episode. And we do have a backlog, like you mentioned. I think we have a ton of really good topics that we talked about. A lot of good information, and hopefully, that's useful to someone out there in the YouTube world or anywhere you catch our podcast. And today's just a continuation of expanding our knowledge set as a community and understanding technologies that, are part of ERPs, right? Or we use them standalone, essentially. But it's an important piece to get right and understand when you're at the right moment to implement this technology for your business and to streamline. Right, streamline, automate your warehousing processes. So I'm really excited to be back talking about this topic specifically, because this is like it's ERP, then it's warehouse management, right? It's really kind of go hand in hand, essentially. So this piece of it we've never talked about and focused in on the warehouse management piece of it. So I'm excited to talk about our experiences and what we've learned along the way on best practices on warehouse management solutions, scanning, maybe some things to stay away from. I have a little show and tell today that I could show some various different type of scanners. So excited about that. But this is, I think this is on everyone's top of mind. I don't know how it would not be. I think it just whether you decide to do it first or second. I think anyone that's moving inventory that has warehousing, right, is looking to eliminate paper and is looking to get real-time data, really fast and make that team very, very agile around the warehouse floor. So the old days of, carrying around, pics and documents and running around the warehouse floor, grabbing things and running back, back and forth. We want to get our steps in, but we want to do it efficiently. We don't have to go to the same place like 50 times, right? And it's, I think these solutions now are smarter. These scanners are smarter. They pick optimally for the user at the end of the day, and it's real time. So different parts of the organization see what's happening, as people are picking. There's not that delay, a long delay. From front office, from back office to front office, from warehouse to front office, however you want to look at it. It's more real time.
This is a big change, especially if you're coming off of something like QuickBooks as well, because QuickBooks, it doesn't have any built-in warehouse management system. So certainly won't have any like mobile capabilities. So if you're coming off of something like QuickBooks, and now you see like a fully fledged ERP, and all of the other things is done, then you're opening the ERP to the rest of the business, which we already know. But at the same time, you might be considering how does that actually look in the warehouse? Because you could have a huge warehouse and you don't want to lock the users behind a desk because primarily their job is up on their feet, grabbing stock, putting away stock, sorting out shipments. So when you move from something like QuickBooks over to an ERP that has WMS and mobile capabilities, you want to be considering that because you don't want to thrust everyone in front of a computer. A lot of people are scared of computers, who have hands-on jobs. They are used to those hands-on jobs, and now they've suddenly got to learn this new piece of software. It's chaining them to their desk. They're not actually getting to do what their job is, what that actually entails. So this is a big thing to think about. I would still say it's a phase 2 item if you are moving from so something like QuickBooks. It's a nice to have, but there's lots of niceties about it. So I would say if you are implementing an ERP and you haven't had one before, phase 1 is obviously all the core processes, order to cash, procurement to payment, all of those. But if you are thinking about what does phase 2 look like, this should be high on the priority list. If you are managing physical inventory and you have a warehouse dealing with shipments, this should be high up on there.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Phase 1, definitely, I think, ERP, streamline the front office, right? Let's get that order to cash, both on the AR and AP side, nailed down, and let's have good processes. And, phase 2, warehouse management solution, right? Now you optimized, your buying patterns, you optimized your shipping, your receiving, and we understand the core logic of the ERP. But now, how do we get, more accurate on our inventory, right? And a lot of this discussion, right, also comes up with saying, well, every time we do a cycle count, we're only 70% accurate. Or, when we do our physical inventory, we're only like 60% accurate. Now, those are red flags, like right away. When you start saying, well, how come we're not 98% accurate, right? How come we're not 99% accurate on our inventory? When you have, so many holes in your warehousing process, right? Then things like this happen. Is you're not reporting real-time inventory. Front office can't rely on the inventory information that's in the system, right? And you can't give proper due dates to your customers. Okay. You're not sure whether you're ordering what you need, you're over ordering, right? Or you actually truly ran out of stock or whatever, right? So all of these other systemic issues happen, right? Just by looking at, how accurate your inventory is and quick fixes around that is kind of things that we're talking about today is how do we put together a roadmap to implement a mobile scanning solution, right? In the warehouse. So these are best practices. These are things that, we've kind of gone through in our experiences and how to prepare and implement, but I'm sure there's probably some additional steps there that every company uniquely could do based on their user base, based on their ERP that they have, maybe based on their setup and things. But I think if we just get underway and start talking about what we have here is understanding the benefits, right? Is the first piece of the roadmap. Is okay. We understand this new buzzword, warehouse management systems, mobile scanning solutions, right? Great. Now, how's that going to benefit us, right? How do we know what is our ROI is going to be, right? How do we know how much accuracy that we want to gain, where we want to gain more accuracy? Reduce some costs maybe somewhere, right? Instead of having 2-3 people touch a pick, right? Now you can just have one person that's on scan and it actually does wave scanning and it gets you to the right place at the right time and you pick up inventory. It's just organic in the natural flow of you going through the aisles you're picking throughout the day, right? Understanding that process, quantifying it and measuring it before you know which warehouse management solution to implement is an important factor here. Is understanding the benefits. What benefits is your company aiming to achieve doing this type of implementation? Because it'd be different company to company, right? Depending on where you feel like your bottlenecks are, what your resource constraints are, right? All that type of stuff. So like doing an ROI analysis is important here. Time studies. How long is it taking us right now to receive something in and put it away, right?
That's a big one.
Why do,
I think that's
yeah,
huge.
yeah.
I think that's huge because when you think about just the picking process, if a lot of it is it, when you do a time study, when you're actually like measuring how long it takes to say pick 10 orders, you start to see how much is tribal knowledge. And it'll be the people that are normally picking. They're like, oh, well, I know that that product is also in this aisle, so I'll grab that now. But it's
Mm-hmm.
like, well, if we had, say, agency staff in here and they had a pick list in front of them, they
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't know. They wouldn't know. Oh, I won't go and pick this next thing on this pick list
Yeah.
because I know that the one after that is also just right here anyway. They won't.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll go down aisle A, say pick that. Then the second line item is like aisle 57, which is down here, and then item number 3 is back in the first aisle that they were just in.
Yeah.
That's actually what is happening when you look at the time study. So it's kind of, you have to think about it from that point of view, because there's going to be a whole load of tribal knowledge that says, well,
Yeah.
I know that I can pick this. They'll be jumping around because they've started to, build up this knowledge of where things are in the warehouse. And you want to get away from that. Like, tribal knowledge in places is great, but other times it kind of covers a lot of the issues. It like masks the issues, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
time studies is huge. You should get someone from the back
Mm-hmm.
office and
Yeah.
go, right, we're going to time you picking this order.
Yeah.
And then
Exactly.
you will see how many steps they take,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and how much time is lost walking back and forth.
Yeah.
Whereas,
Exactly.
which we'll talk about how the mobile side of things does that. It will optimize based on the location of the stock within the warehouse. So it will start to group things together. And that's a huge benefit, is the
Yeah.
time saved.
Yeah.
Through
I am the most inefficient grocery shopper out there. If you put me in a grocery store, I'll go down the same aisle like 15 times because I'm like just going back and forth in a grocery store, not knowing like where everything is, right? So I kind of, think of it that same way. Like if I were
Yeah.
to optimize my grocery picking, right, I want to go down that aisle one time and
Yeah.
pick everything I need to do and be gone and not have to come back there again,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Well, it's just, it happens to everyone. You go to any
Exactly.
grocery store that you haven't been
Yeah.
to, and it's
Yeah.
not your local one, and it's got a
Exactly.
completely different layout. It takes you twice
Yep.
as long. But imagine
Exactly.
going in there and having like your shopping list that you've written down somehow like
Right.
entered into a mobile
Exactly.
system. It goes,
Yeah.
right, you need this aisle, this aisle, this aisle. It'll be so
That's it.
efficient.
Yeah,
And you'd be
so
out
efficient.
there quicker than any time before.
Exactly. And that's what your users are experiencing, right? Without having a mobile solution out there on the warehouse floor. Very same concept, right?
Mm.
A lot of times, right, you want, even upfront on the receiving side, you want them to put it away in a certain area. But now, if you don't have the system to dictate where you need to put it in, they'll put it wherever they want. So, the next time you have to go find that same item, it's going to be a totally opposite side of the warehouse. And now you have to go walk on the other side, right? And it just becomes a challenge, right? Maybe more of an annoyance, a challenge, just slows everything down, prone to additional errors and mistakes, right? So that is a really important point, is understanding the benefits. What are you aiming to achieve here? Right? What's your objective, right? Because it's going to be different from company to company. Workflows, right? This is the opportunity where we could say, hey, our receiving department, the way we receive in, but then our receiving clerks on the other side of the warehouse. So we actually have to take everything that comes in from the dock, and then we got to forklift it on the other side because that's where our receiving clerk is.
Yeah.
Then we break down the inventory, and then we fork it back to where we have to put it on. God, that's inefficient. Why can't we receive it right where the dock is, right?
Yeah.
What do we have to do to make it efficient there, right? So we break it down as soon as it comes in there, and then from there we do a put away step, right? Understanding that workflow. What's a warehouse workflow, right? This takes a little bit of time to do. It's, you have to kind of look at your warehouse. May require you to reorganize a little bit, right? Rearrange things potentially. I know that's a big undertaking for warehouses, to move location racks around and makeshift offices around and stuff like that. It's a lot of work, but if you're planning for the future and you're planning for growth, right? And you're like implementing a warehouse management system, is probably worth thinking about that. Like, do we implement in the same workflow that we have, in the same space design that we have, right? Or do we know we need changes and we've just been procrastinating on those changes? That if we're going to go down this route, let's implement this technology on a workflow, a path that makes optimal sense of our business now, right?
Yeah.
So kind of consider that as part of this, right? It's not really, from a technology standpoint, it could impact you, right? Because now you're trying to group things a little better. Maybe you're going to do the 80-20 rule. 20% items you don't use are going to be in the back of the warehouse now. So that may mean that you're rearranging the racks, and then 80% of the things that's still high, you're going to put in the front, right? Stuff like that. You may put quality a little closer. So when it comes to understanding the benefits, is also understanding your business. It's doing an ROI. How much do you expect to gain here? Time studies, right? Not only dollars, but time. Okay. And then is our warehouse optimally laid out to implement a warehouse management system? I would say, as part of the very initial steps of considering a mobile scanning device or solution.
Yeah. And the other big time saving, I think you mentioned it earlier when we were talking about physical inventory count. When your accuracy might be like 60%, you know what's going to happen. Go and count it again.
Yeah,
Are you sure? Go and double check this. Go and triple check this. Then someone else has to validate that the count is correct and you got corrections.
Yep.
And you know what happens when these counts are wrong? You have to do it more often. Like instead of doing a physical inventory count once a year, maybe you're doing it once a quarter because your accuracy is so poor. You have to do physical counts on a more regular basis, because otherwise it goes, you don't want to get to the end of the financial year, do a physical inventory count and wipe off millions of dollars worth of stock valuation. So think of all the time spent doing that. If your physical inventory count, say, takes 3 days and you're doing it once a quarter, then if you, can increase that accuracy by implementing WMS or some kind of mobile scanning module, then maybe your accuracy comes up enough that says, actually, we can do it once a year. It's fine. 75% reduction in time straight away.
Oh yeah, right away. Exactly. Yeah, and that's like gold, right? When you could quantify that and see that work in action, right? Because that ultimately that's going to reduce, maybe some labor costs for you, right? It may say instead of 2 people running around, one person, the other person could, be doing other things that is going to add value to the business at the end of the day. So absolutely. I think these are really important points here. And then assessing the current process.
And that's the thing. I think this is where you need to spend a lot of time, is assessing the current process, looking at, the accuracy of your accounts, looking at the processes as well. Like, how do we step through the process? How do we ship something? We have a note that prints off on a dispatch printer. What happens next? And stepping through that entire process. And also looking at some of the KPIs that you could probably measure and look to improve. So maybe you want to count number of steps, or maybe you want to time certain things, or maybe you want to have a look at it on the receiving side. The same thing, number of steps. Just like you said, the dock is in one place, the receiving is in another place. Like, what's the steps involved? How many people?
Exactly.
How much time does that add up to? This is all the assessing our current situation. And that gives you a starting point, doesn't it? Because you might not necessarily know or understand how much of an impact it's going to have until you know what today looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Just taking that as an example, maybe right now, when you quote your customers, you're saying, even though you have inventory on hand, it takes you 2 days to actually get it to the dock and ship it. Now imagine if you optimize that workflow, you implement warehouse management systems, mobile scanning, you actually reduce that down to half a day. because you've created efficient processes where as soon as you get an order in, and maybe the order comes in, if it comes in before 10 that day, 10 in the morning, you could ship that day. Imagine that customer service, right? That customer is going to keep coming back to you because you're servicing them fast, right? You're accurate at the end of the day. And you're kind of, that's what market leaders are doing right now, that they're able to really manage the warehouse well, manage their inventory well, so their customers can rely on being, fulfilled, on time and accurate. So, it's a game changer. It really is a game changer. And, you'd see, increases in bottom line, when you could control that shipping policies to that level at the end of the day, right? Which is amazing. And when it comes to assessing your current process, right, it's also looking at, well, if we're preparing for this, right, what about what type of barcodes do we want to implement? You got the 2D, right? You have the 1D, 2D, 3D. Do we have to get our vendors involved and tell our vendors now, hey, when you ship us things, right, make sure you put barcode labels on our packing slip. Make sure you put barcode on our boxes that you put in, right? So we could scan and quickly put away. Because you could have an optimized warehouse flow, but if you don't have the proper documentation to support scanning, right, it's all going to become manual at the end of the day. You got to be able to have barcodes, in the right places. So that means, on the locations, on the racks, on the boxes, on the packing slip, on different documentation, on the pick ticket, right, on your shipment ticket, right? All these places, you got to think about putting the barcode in the right areas so you are scanning at the right times to perform transactions quickly and remotely, right? Using the mobile device. So that's another type of assessment that you have to do as part of your business analysis and implementing is, our documentation up to par to support the scanning processes that we have here, right? That we're looking to implement. And sometimes that's also, maybe you need package labels that come out with specific barcodes, right? And stuff. So that in itself is a whole workflow that you have to create, making sure that barcodes are placed in the right positions.
Yeah. And for the warehouse as well, just like you said about redesigning the warehouse, you might have a warehouse, think of it redesigning it physically and redesigning it within the ERP as well, because you might not be utilizing bins. You might just have aisles because you're used to chaos and anything could be anywhere. And it's tribal knowledge that I know that product's in that aisle, at the top. You might not have bins. You might just have aisle numbers. But when you have the racking, you'll have aisle numbers, you'll have bay locations, you'll have levels. So you need to build out what that kind of looks like and design the warehouse in the ERP to match the physical warehouse.
Exactly. Absolutely. And instituting the right commands, right? When you have barcode scanning devices, you need to make sure that you have the right commands out there in the right places. So that's important. I've seen customers actually where on the end of each aisle, they'll have commands printed and maybe listed right there.
Like from whip to whip.
Exactly. Yeah. So depending where they just go, as you're driving past, you just click scan right there, and it tells them exactly the area that they're in, right? And tells them what bin they have to go to from there and stuff. So there's a lot of things you could do, right? There's every warehouse is going to implement mobile scanning differently. You can't say just because the warehouse did it this way, that's exactly the way I want to implement warehouse scanning this way in my warehouse. Every warehouse does it differently. Every warehouse is different in size, right? Products that you stock, right? Layout of where things are. So it's important to, like I said, put the barcodes in the right places so you're scanning quickly at the end of the day. So we talked about documentation, we talked about locations and bins, commands out there, and then it falls into the technology piece. We're talking about devices now. What's the right technology for me to implement in my warehouse, right? And there's a lot of options out there. AI, unfortunately, can't do the picking for you at the moment, but I think it's going to get close to getting there. But you still need people, picking product, looking at product, and picking from the right places. So what are your device options, right? Do you want to make sure that how's that going to be integrated into your ERP? How is someone going to use a device day to day, right? What happens if devices start getting legs and walking out of the warehouse, unfortunately, right? How do you make sure you have backups of those devices? So device selection is a really important thing because there's a lot of options out there in the marketplace. You have devices that can scan short distance, and you have devices that can scan all the way up to 50, 60 feet, 100 feet up in the air, right? Where you have a barcode. So what type of device do you need? How much do you want to spend on the device? I mean, really, the sky's the limit.
Yep. What type of devices have we got then?
Yeah, we got, there's, you have on your phone, the ability to scan, right? Number one, like a lot of these mobile apps have like Acumatica, Dynamics Business Central, FNSCM has a mobile app now for warehouse management. Standalone warehouse management solutions have mobile apps directly on your iOS device or Android device. But you also have the other traditional ones, right? The one that I like to show as like the entry level is this wired device, right? Essentially, you plug it in into a terminal computer right next to you, and this X, right, scans a barcode, and it basically picks everything up like as if you're typing, picks up that barcode as if you're typing right in that field, and it registers or posts or whatever you need to do, right? So this is like the most basic. You find these on Amazon, literally like $5, $10 or whatnot, right? And you could start off like this, very simple, until you get to a little bit more of a fancier or a rugged device, right? That has its own iOS loaded on it. You charge it every night, right? It's connected to your Wi-Fi internally in the warehouse, but then you're looking at things like this, right? You have this type of device that's remote. You see how it's like really, it contours your hand really nicely. It kind of, you have like a holster, you put this in, the warehouse workers put it in, they get all the information right here. When there's a pick ready, you need to put away, right? This ends up being a user, like a license, right? So you receive something in, and then you assign that document to the gun, right? To this handheld device. So the handheld device gets that record, and then whoever's monitoring that handheld device for that day will go and complete the transactions that it's telling you to do, right? So this is like the wireless device itself, the rugged device. This is a lot more expensive. These kind of cost about, on the low end, maybe $750 each, right? To the high end, right? You have another one here, right? That could do a lot of things. This has a full keyboard here, right? This is a Zebra actually scanner here, and go up to like $2,000 a piece, right? This one scans a little bit longer distance, right? For longer warehouses, right? So maybe has extended battery life on it, but like you see the case is pretty rugged, so this could fall on the ground and won't really damage it internally. But it really depends, right? Like what type of solution are you looking for? How big is your warehouse at the end of the day? How many transactions are you going to be doing on it, right? How long does this thing need to be active? How many shifts are going to be using this device, right? How often does it need to charge? All that's important. Now, a new technology that's emerging in the mobile warehouse space is wearable devices. So Amazon has implemented this. Walmart has implemented these. So they put this sleeve on their wrist or whatever, the forearm, and that ends up being like a device. And then they have something like on their fingers, like a little scanner that it just scans, and it like kind of like shows them right here as they're moving through, right? Medical device industry has that often, right? There's even now glasses. Halo, Microsoft has this Halo lens technology, whatever they call it. But that now could scan the barcode and complete a transaction right through glasses. Like, it's crazy, right? It's how sophisticated do you want to get in the scanning device, right? Do you want to go basic? Start basic. Let's, go to the old, wired device here. Or do we want to go, the medium grade here is still wireless, right? Shorter battery life, maybe shorter scanning distance, right? Or whatnot. Or do you want to go, kind of heavy duty here, right? That type of thing. You want to do wearable, you want to do the glasses, but there's a lot of options, right? You don't have to you don't have to do the glasses right away, right? Maybe you start with the wired one right now and get everybody used to that process, right? And then once they get used to that, then you implement a wireless device, right, on the floor.
Yeah.
But it's to do these things, right, takes time, and you have to do your homework. You got to know which of these is going to fit your business best, right? It's not like a one size fits all. You need to
Yeah.
you need to pick a specific one.
I think also when you're going wireless, you need to think about the wider infrastructure as well. Do you now need to invest in wireless access points in your warehouse? Because the warehouse, it might be completely disconnected from wherever your offices are. It might be in a different building. So you need to like project a network over there so the devices can actually connect to them. Do you have enough Wi-Fi coverage where you want to actually use these handhelds? And also from a network security point of view, because these devices are going to be linked directly to your ERP. And I'm hot on security.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You absolutely are.
Oh, yes. So is there any kind of extra steps that you need to consider when you're now connecting devices directly into an ERP on devices that might be left unattended in a warehouse? So kind of what does that kind of look like? And
right.
What would you need to consider before you go down this wireless route?
Exactly. Yeah. If you don't do this now, you're eventually going to do it. It's just inevitable. I feel like, the warehousing, especially if you hold inventory and stuff like that, it just makes it a lot more efficient. And kind of moving along, kind of the last few steps here, once you've kind of figured all this out, your workflow, your ROI, the devices that you want, right? You got to test these things. Don't just, overnight buy all this stuff and say, we're ready to go. Let's go ahead and just start using this, right? You got to train people. It takes time, right? It's a whole new device, right? Just because, they know how to use your cell phones doesn't mean that they're going to understand how, it works, how it works using a inventory scanner, right? You got to.
I would say you need to get buy-in before that. I'd say you need to go before that because no one likes change, and it's an easy way to get people's backs up when you walk into their warehouse because they see it as their warehouse, and you go, "I've decided that you are now going to use this. You're not, I'm going to tell you how to do your job, and it's going to be through this gun. Don't worry, I'll train you on it. You've already lost the battle. Like if you haven't got their buy-in before that, then it doesn't really matter how good your training is. They're gonna hate it. They're gonna dislike it. So
you're resistant. They're gonna be resistant to it. Exactly.
I think you need to advertise it. You've got to get people excited about this, as much as that can be quite difficult. But you've got to get people engaged and see it as them deciding or designing the system.
Yeah.
I know there's little leeway in actually designing how the system works at a granular level, but try and build up some excitement of you get to redesign the warehouse. You get to design it how you would like it.
Yeah.
Help us design what this mobile solution looks like. And that might just be, look, we've got 3 options on the table. Which one do you think would suit you better, doing your job better? So when you get to training and testing the system, they've already invested time. They want to see it as a success because they feel like they've been part of the process. Rather than doing a project for 4 months and then instilling it upon them on day one.
Yeah. Excellent point, because they're going to be the key to success. If they don't catch on and they don't adopt, they don't adapt to it, and kind of really make it their own, it's just going to fall by the wayside, right? It's really easy for people just to say, I don't want to use this. I'm going to put this down and I'm going to go back to my paper, right? And most people won't even know. Front office might not even know because you still see transactions happening in the system, right? But when you get their buy-in, they're more likely to use this device, and they're more likely to embrace it and help make it successful. It's just a matter of fact there, and that comes with training, that comes with pilot testing, keeping them involved in the process. You want to reduce that resistance to change, right? Reduce that barrier.
Yeah.
that you're implementing out there, this new technology. And, you also want to consider outside of this backups of some of these guys, right? Like I said, they'll run out the door. Sometimes they have their own 2 feet. Put in a cage. I've seen cages. So they put it in a cage. It gets charged every night, and then it goes back in the cage, and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think I've never seen it where a team has not embraced it, right? If done
Yeah.
correctly. People love technology. They love technology, especially in this area.
Yeah. And also, when it comes to the training, try and train the trainer. Because I think people are more receptive when they're being shown something or trained on something by someone that they work with day to day. It's a little bit more engaging, and they'll be more receptive with that than some external person. They don't know that's come in to train them on the system and then it's going to leave again. I think if I was a warehouse operative and I work day in, day out with my warehouse manager, I know how busy it can get. I know how physically demanding my job is because he's there pulling with me. I think if I'm getting trained by that person that knows how bad or how hard the job can be, then I'm probably going to be more receptive than a stranger coming in showing me a new system.
Agreed.
So training the trainer is a really good way. And it allows the implementation team, maybe the more technical side of things, to look at the backups and having monitors in place to monitor the system. Is it posting correctly in the ERP? Because they're probably also going to be the ones that are more of an expert on the warehousing scanning side. You don't want them bogged down doing the training because they need to be like kind of checking the ERP side of things as well. So if you can train the trainer and let them kind of distill the information down, that will then free up the technical team to move on to testing the back end of it as well.
Yeah. No, 100% agreed. 100% agreed.
What other kind of things should we consider when we're talking about some of the challenges in general? It could be at any phase of an implementation.
What we didn't discuss today, and maybe we'll touch on a separate podcast, is the UI, the actual software that's going to run on the scanning device, right? Does it have the right level of functionality to manage the warehouse, right? So we know, for example, in the Business Central space, the nav space, you have, Lanham has an ACE product. You have InsightWorks that has Warehouse Insights, right? There is so many different warehouse solutions out there that do things just a little differently. And you want to find the right interface for your team, right? Yeah, you implemented this, but if you have a software that's running on it, but it takes you 50 different scans, it's not worth it, right? You want a solution that is designed for your process. So taking time to find the right software fit based on the way you pick, based on the way you put away, based on you change units of measure, based on you do your replenishments on your bins and stuff like that, right? How many scans do you want to do, right? And that comes with a little bit of how you've implemented your ERP and the warehouse processes, right? And that warehouse solution now and how it supports, that process on the handheld device, right? And I think in like a future episode, what we would like to do is maybe show, a few different software providers and how it operates on a handheld device, right? And show you some of the differences between Acumatica, maybe Business Central, and those solutions. But that's an important piece of this: is find the right software solution that runs on the handheld device, right? Because some ERPs don't have out of the box mobile scanning software, so you have to do a bolt-on that then runs on the device, right? So
because that can be easily missed if you're looking back on your like pre WMS situation and you've recorded and everyone's like, oh yeah, it's terrible, isn't it? Look at how many steps that we take Look how much time it takes us. Our step count is like 20,000 steps a day.
Yeah.
And then like post implementation, everyone's high fiving each other because it's now 1,000 steps a day.
Right.
They don't realize that the UI now means everyone hates it, but no one wants to tell anyone that they do.
Yeah.
But now it's like 50 clicks to register a pick. Because I've got to hit the dispatch note. I need to scan that, confirm it on the screen, go into the line items, click the line, click this, click pick. Then I get a pop-up box to confirm, click yes. Then I've got to click the back button. Like, there's 50 clicks. I hate it.
Yeah,
like, yes,
exactly.
okay, I'm not doing many steps now, but now I've got to do 50 clicks.
Yeah, but I'm not doing that many steps, but I'm standing in front of the bin for like 10 minutes, clicking away.
Yeah.
Before I move, right? So, yeah, I think that's an important consideration. You got to find the right software fit in terms of this analysis. But I think that would be a nice one to show on a future episode. Show a few different options out there that we know of. At least I'm sure there's probably a ton out there, and maybe we'll grab some third parties to show their handheld device potentially. On our podcast. So we'll see. Stay tuned.
Good. Thank you very much. And until next time, have a wonderful 2 weeks. And I will catch you next episode.
Absolutely.
Okay. Have a good one.
Yeah.